What is your greatest weakness in 2020? Today, in this video, I'm going to tell you how to answer that in a virtual job interview. We're going to apply what we know about the greatest weakness question to a virtual interview. What up, fam? Dr. James W. Stallcup, aka Jimmy Joe Coltrane. Yo, I'm like John Force because I've got a top fuel job interview course. Yo, if you've got a job interview channel, you have to answer the greatest weakness question. You have to make a video about that. It's like mandatory. So I first learned how to answer this question when I read the book Knock 'Em Dead. That is a great job interview book. If you had to job interview and you only had one resource to use and it had to be a book, I would strongly recommend that book. Now, I'm going to add a few layers on to what they said and then tell you how to virtualize that method of answering the question. Yo, check out that book. It's a good book. I don't get paid $1 to say that. I'm just telling you it's a good book. So here's how we're going to lay out this answer. Step 1, don't call it a weakness. Step 2, name something that everybody in that field hates. Step 3, you're going to verbalize that everyone hates it. Step 4, you're going to give a personal attestation that you understand the importance of it. Then you're going to explain to them a plan that you implemented to make sure that you comply with it. And then you're going to use the term accountability. So 6 steps is a little bit more complicated than it usually is taught, but I believe that every step is crucial. Certainly the bookends that we're putting on this compared to some of the previous ways it was answered, I believe are going to improve your chances. And so let's get right into this. Real quick, take a moment and click like and click subscribe. I'm putting out 2 videos. I'm uploading 2 videos a week, and I don't want you to miss it. Brand new channel. I need your help. Don't call it a weakness. Name something everybody hates in your field. State out loud that everyone hates it. Testify that you know it's important. Give them an example of some sort of plan that you've done to solve it, and then use the word accountability. 6 steps. There is a formula to answering this question, and we're going to walk through plenty of examples. And by the end of this video, you're going to be the best person out there at answering this question. But let me tell you, even though there's a formula, you need to be truthful, okay? This needs to be personalized content. Now, the weird thing is, once you learn how to do this, you can do it for any job out there, just right off the top of your head without even thinking. And I'm going to give you an awesome example of that at the end. But you do need to actually pick something that you've done. I'm not encouraging anyone to be fraudulent in the way they answer this question. I'm just saying we're going to kind of prey on human emotions with this. Social dynamics. It exists. Outside of the PUA community, social dynamics exist in a job interview. So we want a story arc, right? The formula that I'm going to teach you has a story arc. And this is one of these things that very early on when people were teaching job interviews, they said, well, you need to list a positive, but list it as a weakness. And that's sort of a very simplistic thing to do. And I think these answers like, oh, I just care too much, or, oh, I put my whole life's effort into my work. Like that doesn't really work. People still do that. Like when you interview people, they still do that, but that's kind of old and tired, right? So the newer version, and when I say new, I'm going to say, the last 10 to 15 years when people have been kind of teaching this method, and I don't even know where it originated. This does have a story arc. People have kind of accidentally stumbled onto something that works, right? What is your greatest weakness 2020? The 2020 edition means that you're going to be doing it virtually most likely. So this answer has to be fast. This is a big challenge. Like, if you read the books, if you read Knock 'Em Dead, if you look at the videos that are out there, they teach you this kind of erudite way to answer this. Yo, you have to keep it short. Think of the difference between a long, drawn-out title of a Meatloaf song and a Snapchat clickbait headline. Meatloaf song. Objects in the rearview mirror may appear closer than they are. Snapchat. Rearview mirror has people shook. Right? So that's what we're going for. We've got to condense that. And the reason is, you've heard me say this before, but I got to say it in every video because people may not see it. You have to keep your job interview answers short in a virtual job interview because people lose interest. There's something about looking at a screen that everything has to be fast and it has to be constantly changing, or we don't like it. We have been habituated to very fast, very punctual things. So the rule in virtual job interviews is, pause before you answer. Never risk talking over someone, okay? Pause before you answer, and then boom, hit it. And that's a challenge for this question because this is a question that could kind of run long. Okay, so what we're doing with this question is we are identifying with the obstacle. We are going to tap into the obstacle's emotions and we are going to draw them in our story arc by naming something that obstacle has a problem with. This works really, really good if the person you're interviewing with is in the same industry with you. It does not work as good if they are a hiring manager. If it's a big company, you're interviewing with somebody with HR, they may not share the problem. Now, it's still going to resonate. It's still the correct way to answer it, but if I am a doctor being interviewed by a doctor, this is slam dunk out of the park. If I am a doctor being interviewed by an HR department for a multi-state healthcare system, then it's going to not be quite as good. Unless for some reason you got somebody who had like 110% human empathy, then maybe it works. So don't call it a weakness. You don't have a weakness. Admitting you have a weakness is a demonstration of lower value. You cannot find a weakness in the fabric of Jimmy Joe Coltrane. There's no weakness that exists. Now, in fact, there's thousands of weaknesses, but I would never telegraph those to you. So I'm not going to call it a weakness. I'm going to call it a challenge, call it an opportunity, something like that. I like the term challenge. Difficulty is also good. You can call it difficulty. So I'm a doctor interviewing. You ready? You are interviewing me. You are a doctor. I am a doctor. So, Jimmy Joe Coltrane, what is your greatest weakness? Well, a challenge for me, like a lot of doctors, is keeping up with current evidence. So let's stop the answer right there. So a challenge for me, didn't call it a weakness. A challenge for me, like a lot of doctors. Now, I'm not saying like you, but that's what I mean. Is keeping up with current evidence. Now I tapped into something. So a very hard part about being a doctor is studying, is figuring out how to find time in the day to keep up with current medical evidence. So let's take it from the top and I'll answer it. So a challenge for me, like a lot of doctors, is keeping up with current evidence. So I made a goal to myself of reading 90 minutes of level 1 evidence every week. And I keep an index card by my desk that I can mark it down on to make sure I meet my goal every week. That holds me accountable to myself. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. That was a very quick answer, but here's what I've done. My problem is your problem. But I'm different than you because I learned how to solve it. And look at you, you probably don't do 90 minutes a week. I am going to demonstrate higher value because I have solved a problem that you yourself have not been able to solve. Now, this sounds bold. You're not phrasing it like that, but internally they are going, it's a negative, right? I am giving them a neg. I am delivering a negative to the obstacle. I am saying to the obstacle, here is something that I've done, and I know doggone good and well they themselves have not been able to achieve that because very few doctors can, right? So that's what we're going to hit on. Want to hear another one? Now I'm interviewing as a truck driver. Well, a challenge for me, like it is a lot of truck drivers, is keeping up with the logbook. Now, I don't know anything about truck driving. I'm just guessing that there's a logbook or something they keep up with. In your field, you will know what the challenges are. Something that nobody likes, right? So a challenge for me, like it is a lot of truck drivers, is keeping up with the logbook. So 6 months ago, I set an alarm on my phone to ding, and it says check logbook. Now that sounds silly, but since I've been doing that, I've been 100% compliant, and it gives me another level of accountability. So in your given field, you're going to know what this is. And there's kind of a famous story about this that I get asked to tell a lot. When I do the live course, I kind of tell it. I was out having beers one night with a buddy of mine, and there was a guy there who has a landscape company. And we were talking about job interviewing, and he does his own interviews for the landscape company. And we were talking about how hard it is to tell who's going to be an employee and who's going to kind of wash out after a given amount of time. And we were talking about interview questions. And of course, this one gets brought up because it's like the most famous interview question. And so he asked me how I would answer that. And I said, as a doctor, and then I gave him the answer. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, well, that works pretty good if you're a doctor, but I don't think somebody could pull that off with a landscape company. And I said, well, interview me as a landscaper. And so this is kind of fun when I get people to mock interview me. This is like a great party trick. And so he asked me, he says, so as a landscaper, what's your greatest weakness? And I said, well, a challenge for me, like it is a lot of landscapers, is downtime of the machines. If the machines aren't running, they're not able to make you money. So what I did is, in our shed, I put a 3x5 index card at the location of every machine, and I note down the last time the blades were sharpened, the blades were changed, the spark plug was changed, the oil was changed, and the air filter was changed. Now, this sounds like a small deal, but since I've been doing that, we have had far more reliable machines in service and less downtime, which makes us more money. And that index card's kind of a level of accountability. The dude's speechless. And he told me, and this is the good part of the story, right? He told me, there for a moment, I would have hired you as a landscaper. I would have made you a landscape manager. You see, I drew him in. People want to be sold. People want to imagine. People want to look at you and imagine that you're going to be the solution to their problems. I know a lot of people won't be able to relate to this analogy, but the greatest professional wrestling matches that have ever happened in history are the ones in which you looked at Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant and you said, I know this is fake. But these two guys really hate each other. There's something different about this. Like, I know this is all fake, but there is something about these two guys that they really have malice in their hearts to each other. You want to be able to have that disbelief. You want to be able to engage in that fantasy, just like the obstacle wants to engage in the fantasy that you will be the perfect employee. You just have to facilitate that for them. Now, once you bring them in, they will hire you. The one who they like gets hired, not the one who's the most qualified. The most qualified may get the job, but the one they like, they will move heaven and earth to get that person the job. So facilitate them buying in. Okay, 2 videos a week. Click like, click subscribe, and thanks for watching.